Go for broke! Go! Make on the make! Go for broke!
Go for Broke was the slogan of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which embodied their bravery, determination, and willingness to give everything they had. The 442nd was an infantry regiment in the United States Army comprised almost entirely of Japanese American men, most of whom were volunteers. It was authorized by President Roosevelt on February 1, 1943, after an experimental unit formed of Japanese Americans known as the 100th Infantry Battalion proved successful and was later combined to form one unit. At the time of the 442nd's formation, the bombing of Pearl Harbor had already affected Japanese American life. However, even before Pearl Harbor, Americans had developed a bitter anti-Asian attitude, which led to things like the United States Supreme Court declaring Japanese aliens ineligible to citizenship. After Pearl Harbor, the discrimination and prejudice towards Japanese Americans only became worse.
When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, it brought a very deep cloud of suspicion over all Japanese and Japanese Americans living in the United States.
Before the war started, we thought we was friends with everybody. But when the war started, oh, they look at us in a different way. It wasn't a good time of our lives.
Anti-Japanese statements, including the racial slurred Japs, appeared all over towns, in shop windows, newspapers, and speeches. The hatred of the Japanese Americans turned into blind and senseless fear as accusations spread of Japanese spies within America.
We looked like them, you know? Although we were different.
This hatred led to President Roosevelt issuing an order for Japanese Americans to be sent to internment camps.
On the mainland, about 110,000 to 120,000, or the entire Japanese population, was moved away from the West Coast.
Those sent to the camps had no trials, hearings, or process of law. They were forcibly taken from their homes and locked up like criminals simply because they were of Japanese descent. Though they were told that this was for their own safety, the guns in the camp were always pointed at them. Although they were hated by the country they loved, the 442nd took a stand, rising above the pain of discrimination from their own people and government, to prove that the Japanese were not just Japanese, they were Japanese Americans. They helped to change the perspective of other Americans and prove their loyalty to the country, contributing significantly to the victory of the Allied powers. When the War Department announced the activation of the 442nd, over 10,000 islanders signed up, but the Army could only take 1/4 of them.
We all wanted to join. See, at first, they wouldn't let us join because they thought we were the enemy.
They were shipped to the mainland where they met up with several thousand other Nisei from all over the United States who had volunteered or been drafted. Though they were small, the Japanese Americans were brave. Not only did they willingly volunteer to enter the battlefield for a country that was rejecting them, they were also willing to stand up to the rejection and hatred towards them, and took the matter of proving themselves into their own hands. The 442nd Infantry Regiment contributed to the victory of America with the lives of over 600 and the wounds of over 3,000 men.
They were able to prove their loyalty in war and offer their lives as a sacrifice for redemption.
The 442nd had been deployed all over Europe.
Went to Italy, went to France, went back to Italy. Some guys went to Germany.
However, challenges arose because of suspicion of their loyalty to America from their superiors and discrimination by almost everyone surrounding them.
We went among the hourly soldiers. They looked down on us.
Though they were brave in and out of battle, taking the stand wasn't easy for the Japanese Americans. Another difficult aspect was that many of the members of the 442nd had to fight while their family members were detained in internment camps. Many of the 442nd also didn't have much to return to, as businesses run by Japanese Americans were shut down. Despite all the difficulties, the 442nd faithfully fought for America, as the pressure of knowing that their actions would determine how America saw and treated them, their families, and all Japanese Americans loomed behind them.
There was a lot at stake about how they behaved and participated in the war. They knew this would impact their families and the children who would come after.
They all held to the belief that their actions shouldn't dishonor their family and that they shouldn't dishonor their country. They would rather die than bring shame and thus were determined to fight. Nevertheless, the 442nd had the motive and drive to redeem themselves in the eyes of America. Their impact on the war was great as they worked difficult jobs and were always ready to defend America in every way that they could. As further verification of loyalty and valor, Japanese Americans would also help win the war in the Pacific as interpreters and translators against Japan. After the war, the 442nd became known as the most decorated unit for its size and length of service. The Japanese American soldiers who had fought for America received many awards. With the receiving of awards and recognition, discrimination for the most part slowly came to a stop in America, as soldiers coming home received a hero's welcome and became respected as the realization of their actions to defend America spread. Another one of the great influences the 442nd had was on Japanese Americans in politics.
In Hawaii, the Japanese were able to usurp the power and create a big Democratic Party.
Many veterans took on leadership roles, sparking a political revolution in Hawaii, where a group including Daniel Inouye went on to hold the highest political offices in the new state in the 1960s and 70s.
When they came back from the war, even though there were some of them that still experienced racial discrimination, and as a unit, they all proved that they were loyal Americans.
Overall, the efforts and achievements of Japanese Americans had been recognized and seen by most Americans as both achievements in fighting to defend America and fighting against racism and discrimination. In addition, as President Truman awarded them with the Presidential Unit Citation, he told them,
"You fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you've won. Keep up that fight, and we'll continue to win. We'll make this great republic stand for just what its Constitution says it stands for, the welfare of all the people, all the time."
What Truman said had influenced other Americans to also believe that race was not an issue because at heart these people were all loyal Americans.
I share the proudness of these guys that volunteered, especially for the mainland boys, that the parents were in concentration camp and yet they were out there fighting for their country.
The 442nd also helped America to realize their wrongdoings, which the U.S. government tried to make up for through the H.R. 442nd Civil Liberties Act of 1987, paying internees $20,000. These payments helped Japanese Americans rebuild their lives and businesses, and helped to restore their opportunities and rights along with their dignity. Therefore, even with the demeaning actions and hateful attitudes in America, the Japanese Americans took a stand against racism and proved their loyalty as true American citizens. However, the 442nd did more than just prove themselves and other Japanese. In taking a stand against the racism directed towards them, they showed and exemplified the very definition of being American, that it's not in your ethnicity or your looks or your skin, it's in your values, beliefs, and actions. Thus, even with the discrimination at home, the 442nd took a stand for the Japanese in America even when their country tried to put them down, and fought for it when it rejected them. They helped to change the perspective of other Americans and prove their loyalty, not as Japanese, but as Americans.
They took a stand as individuals, as members of their community, and as Americans to not only support America, but to prove their loyalty. They were fighting against racism and in the end established themselves as worthy citizens.